Are the Tuatha Dé Danann actually aliens? Well, Daggy Agus Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And this is a question. It's actually a question that was asked, and I'll do the person the honor of reading out the full question for context, because there is a couple of different points that people like to correlate between the Irish people of the other world, the Daoine Sidhe, the Tuatha Dé Danann, and extraterrestrials. So this person saying, lately I've heard a lot of comparison between the other crowd and aliens. There are tales about abduction from both the other crowd and aliens. There are dealings with both sides and warnings about taking food and drink from them. There are reports of missing time after having encountered either group in tales or tales of hybrid children. There are many examples or similarities, but I don't want to make this too long. What do you make of this idea that they are indeed the same? Well, Gaurav Mahaga, thank you very much for the question. I do really appreciate it. I do like questions. Like it's the opportunity to explore things and to challenge our perspectives, and that's the value of a good question. And in honoring the Irish tradition, any ceist that is placed upon a bird, we start by saying "Ní answer," not hard to say. Not hard to say. From our perspective, no. The Tuatha Dé Danann, the other crowd, are not aliens. They're not people from another world. They are very much people of this world. And the thing I always point to when I talk about that narrative is the fact that we have lineage. We have actual lineage and records in that first narrative, that first mythological cycle and story that we have called Lebor Gabála Érenn, the Book of Taking of Ireland. It talks about the different tribes that come into Ireland when they arrive, and then the descendants and the difficulties that happens with them, and then their descendants leaving Ireland, and then the children of the descendants who left coming back into Ireland as different tribes. All of this shows that it is really the narrative, the first main story of Ireland is emigration and immigration. It's about people from the island going out of the island and their children or descendants coming back into the island or having such a love of the island that no matter how many generations pass, there's still something that connects them back to Ireland. Which is why, all of the current rise of problems in our world about emigration and refugees or people coming into countries, about the movement of people and tribes in our world, we shouldn't be fighting against that. We shouldn't be allowing hate to try and make us fearful of that because it's something that has always happened, especially with Ireland, especially given the culture that we have of Irish people being hospitable, making space, making room. And if anyone starts to present Ireland as full and Ireland for the Irish, they're just showing themselves as someone who is closed-minded, probably fearful, or just an absolute racist. So back to the point. Sorry, back to the point. Are the Tuatha Dé Danann aliens? No, they're not. Now, there is stuff that people like to pull out and point at in the narratives of the Tuatha Dé Danann arriving into Ireland. The tribe that is in Ireland before the Tuatha Dé Danann are the Firbolg. The Firbolg are descended from one of the sons of Nemed, a guy called Semyon, who was Semyon's son of Nemed, and it was him and his people who went out and they went into Greece. They fled oppression in Ireland, they went into Greece, and their descendants became the Firbolg, who never forgot their ancestral homeland and came back to Ireland. Finding it empty, they took ownership of it. After a while, there is a vision. A guy called Uchud, who's king of the Firbolg, has this vision of this flock of crows coming in, this flock of dark birds, and then he himself fights against this noblest of dark birds and cuts off its wing. When he has this vision translated by his druid, the druid tells him that there is a fleet of 1,000 ships coming, and the people of that ship on those ships are skilled in every art and full of occult knowledge or hidden knowledge and druidry that they have learned on their travels, and that them coming into Ireland is a return, but also the fact that, they will be victorious because they are so talented and so capable. And so that is the description of the Tuatha Dé Danann before they even arrive. Now, the part that people point at is some translations of the older mythology talk about the Tuatha Dé Danann arriving in their ships. Now, they talk about them being outside of Ireland in four great cities in the islands to the north and east of Ireland. And when they come back into Ireland, they arrive in their ships. Now, romanticized translations present it as sky ships or ships of the air. Other translations try and demystify that, and they talk about them landing on the island of Ireland And then one translation is they arrive out of a magical mist. The other translation is that they arrive on ships, but then they burn the ships. And an example of their resolve to stay in Ireland. And it is this smoke or clouding that is the arrival out of the mists. Um, but whichever way, whether you want to follow the mythical romanticized version or a different practical view on the narrative, the Tuatha Dé Danann are also descended from the tribe of Nemeth. I did do a video about this elsewhere as well, but the brother of Semyon, a guy called Beothuk, he was son of Érenn the soothsayer. Sorry, hold on, let me just double check my brain on that. No, we can't confirm that Simeon. I think Simeon and Aaron Bale were brothers because they're both sons of Nemeth. So Aaron Bale, the soothsayer, his son Beothuk dies in Ireland, but his 50 wives and their people leave out of Ireland, and they're the ones who go into these islands out to the north and the east, and then study and learn and grow in all form of skill, talent, and knowledge and druidry. And it's their descendants who come back as the Tuatha Dé Danann. Now, when people point at, well, missing time or abductions, um, it is conflating different narratives. People have different experiences and different approaches when they have spiritual experiences or deep meditation experiences. Like chemically speaking, we know that when we sleep, there are chemicals that are released in our bodies, which means that when we hit the REM sleep, the deep dream, our body is functionally immobilized. Our chemicals are released by our brain to paralyze our body so that we don't reenact what is happening in our deep REM sleep processing protocol. Now, if someone were to come straight back to consciousness very quickly out of a REM cycle, their body might still be processing that paralytic. Now, we can track this, we know this is part of medical science, but from a perspective that could seem very terrifying, it could be seem very off-putting. And then the mind fills in, the information fills in. Now, what's the difference between believing in aliens and believing in pagan gods and deities and people of the other world? Not a lot. What we have, though, is information handed down from ancestors in story on the island. What we have from aliens is a perspective that we're not alone in this vast universe, despite the fact that we can't correlate or we can't quantify anyone or anything visiting our corner of this galactic verse. Um, do I believe aliens exist? I think it's hubris to think that we are the only sentient organism to have evolved. I think in the vast expanse, like applying the mathematics of it, ex applying like the logical calculations of probability, I think it's hubris to think that we are the only sentient entity to have ever developed in our billions of years old or hundreds of billions of years old universe. Um, but I don't think that we have personally had interactions with extraterrestrial life forms on our planet. I have questions. I'm always going to be skeptical. I'm always open to exploring those narratives. But I think there's a lot of dangers when we start to look for parallels and then think things are the same because there is a possible similarity. And the difficulty with particularly the mention of hybrid children, like hybrid children, are you talking about Lou being a person of mixed race, being born of two tribes? Are you talking about Cuchulainn being a child of someone of the other world and someone of our world? Or is it the changeling circumstance where a fey entity is left in our world, or actually a glamoured log is left to replace a child who was taken into the other world? There's a number of different narratives in the Irish folklore, all of which are difficult to handle, and especially when we look back at the legal record, there are times where people who have been suffering from mental illnesses have not been receiving the care because we didn't know about it, or because of the way the strict patriarchal circumstances were about like postnatal depression and postnatal stresses and not getting the support you need from the society and the culture around you. There's a whole number of different things that we can point at. Now, I know I'm bringing multiple different narratives into it, but when someone starts presenting, oh well, it's a half human, half alien child hybrid, and sure that's changelings, and maybe changelings are suddenly that's how autism is, or Down syndrome, people with extra hormones or chromosomes. The narrative gets very difficult very quickly, and I think it's important to say very clearly that we don't agree with that narrative. Any narrative that is going to undermine or harm or demean or try and shift recognition of someone's basic human rights is something we will always have a problem with. Interestingly enough, there was in the Brehon laws, before Ireland was conquered, we had our own legal system. It was known as the Brehon laws, and there was recognition in the Brehon law of someone who was referred to as an Amadan. An Amadan is the word Irish word now for someone who is dumb or mentally deficient in some way, shape, or form, and has been used as like calling someone a bad word, like you'd call them an idiot to their face. But there was a recognition of a status as Amadan in tribal rule in Tua, and there was a price to be paid, an honor price, if someone harmed someone who's classified as an Amadan, someone who is classified as in some way incapable of looking after themselves. In which case, they're a member of the tribe, they're a member of the Tua, and they are to be taken care of by everyone else in the Tua. And if anyone harms that person, there is a price to be paid. There is something that has to be. There is recompense that has to be given for anyone harming someone who is in some way classified as mentally deficient. Now, this is where we end up butting up against this our world, other world narrative. Like, do I believe in the Irish other world? Yes. Do I believe it's some aspect of parallel existence? Yes. Have I had experiences that I can't quantify myself? Yes. But does that mean that I need to advocate for that? I have to tell everyone that this is the way it is and it's all no. What I will always do is I will share my perspectives, I will share my experiences and allow people the space to make up their own decisions. Allow people the grace to consider things from their own rationale, their own experiences, and to figure it out for themselves. Now, there are generations of folklore that talk about interactions with the other crowd in Ireland. There are behavioral circumstances and traditions that are still honored down to today that are about protecting your home, protecting your environment, caring for your family in such a way to prevent harm against them, be it from the other crowd or be it from adverse magical practices or charms or negative entities. I am always going to be skeptical. Absolutely. Even when it comes down to wearing a tattoo which honors a deity that I feel very strongly about, feel a very strong connection to, I'm always going to be skeptical. And if someone were to turn around and say the Dagda doesn't exist, I'd be like, okay, fair enough. But he exists for me because he inspires me to be a better version of me. I don't need anyone else to believe in deities, and I don't need anyone else to believe that I'm right or I'm wrong about this. What I will always say when this kind of question comes up, though, it is about being very, very careful how the narrative is moved. Because if you can start defining people as other, if you can start defining people as alien or different based on some categories or some criteria, it's a very short hop, skip, and a jump to you're no longer human, you don't deserve human rights, you therefore are someone who does not belong. And we see that as a rising difficulty all around the world. There are books out there that refer to like Ancient Aliens, that TV show. Um, I have both. I find that entertaining, but it is entertainment to me because referring to the pyramids being built by aliens or Newgrange being built by aliens or Stonehenge, like that really, really does a disservice to the amount of ingenuity that has always existed within the human species. Ever since we started figuring, ever since our brains started to develop, ever since we started to begin to use tools and begin to figure out things, curiosity has always driven the progression of our species. And we have found ways to quantify that. We've found ways to define that with mathematics, with, observing the stars, observing the shift of our planet as we go. And to turn around and say, well, aliens turned up and magically made it all happen, that is a huge, in my opinion, disservice to the generations of ingenuity that has been and defines our species as it is today. And so, like, there's always going to be ethics, there's always going to be philosophy, there's always going to be some element of making sure we're doing the things for the right reason. But curiosity is one of the most amazing things that we have as a species, one of the most amazing capacities we have. And if we're able to follow our curiosity in an open-minded kind of way, in line with principles and ethics of care for others, compassion, and do no harm, then the sky is the limit. Like the solar system is the next step, the galaxy beyond, who knows where we'll end up eventually. So no, I don't think the Tuatha Dé Danann or the other crowd are aliens. Um, because we can actually point back, we can say exactly. And the Numidians weren't the first tribe to come in here. There was the Partholonians before the Numidians. There was the Khazarians before the Partholonians. All of the narrative and story talks about tribes of people coming out of other places and finding Ireland an amazing place to fucking be, and being like, Jesus, lads, this is fucking brilliant. Let's just live here. And Ireland has always been, yes, wrangled as to who's in control and back and forward and difficulties. Like the Sons of Mill, from which the Gael people are said to be descended, are the last tribe, and they came in conquest. But that's the last tribe in the mythological era. We could talk about the Danes and the Vikings, that's another tribe that came and that integrated. The Normans came in conquest, okay, sure, but some Norman families integrated with Irish culture and became referred to as more Irish than the Irish themselves. The conquest of England on Ireland was one of the more brutal things as they developed their empire. They cut their teeth on their empire building skills on our island and then proceeded to do all of the terrible things they did against us, against other countries to undermine those other cultures for their own well-being or their own profiteering, to be honest. But still, the Irish culture is pervasive. The Irish culture is beautiful and expressive, and we are all over the world. People descended of Irish ancestry and Irish culture are everywhere. And even now, thousands of years later, you talk to someone who has Irish culture in them, Irish ancestry somewhere, some part of them will resonate with this island of their ancestors. And if they don't come back, they will probably definitely at least try if they can come visit. So thank you very much for the question. I really appreciate the question. I really do. As I said, I love a good question because it allows us an opportunity to challenge our perspectives, to open our minds, to follow that curiosity that really helps us be more than what we currently are. So, if you'd like to know more about the Irish Pagan School, about the other crowd, the fairies, the Dini Ma, we have classes on those at the Irish Pagan School, or you can just pick up some free resources. Go to irishpagan.school/free, and there's loads of stuff you can pick up. If you do have a question or question, or in the comments, if I have an opinion on something or an answer for you, I'd like to try and answer as best I can. So, until next time, look after yourself. Take care. Agus Slán. Goodbye.